Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how to stay focused during wedding season. And let's just be real, it's really hard for everybody. I don't think that there's a single wedding pro out there that feels like they've got it all together, especially through the heights of the season.
Yeah.
And we want to try to give you some ideas that have kind of worked for us and also just give you some insight onto the reality of being a wedding pro, a wedding photographer, a wedding videographer. Those are things that it just kind of comes with the business. There's ups and downs in this business, and in the sense of like when we're busy and when we're not. And so it's just about trying to take advantage of it when it's not busy, but also try to come up with something that feels really good so you don't just like lose all the traction that you've been creating in the off season.
Yeah, well, I can see that we're kind of in this weird area where we did a lot of projects, like our own little things like the podcast and just trying to figure out what we're going to do for the season. And then weddings hit us. And we didn't even start with that many weddings, but I still feel like there's just, the prep before the wedding, the homework afterwards, figuring out who's going to work with us, building the timelines, doing the engagement sessions. It just all builds up and then blah, it's all there all at once. So yeah, we really have to plan our weeks. We're lucky that there's two of us in this because we can bounce the ideas off each other and say, here's kind of what's on my plate, what's on your plate. How are we going to balance, the kids on top of it? How are we going to balance our relationship? How are we going to balance giving an exceptional service to our clients? Because that's really what we like to do, is like we think of ourselves as like a more luxurious or a more experienced photographer. So we try our hardest, our best, and it really just takes a lot of planning ahead. Like we even go as far as looking at, months in advance, the weddings, and blocking off time to edit those weddings when that comes, because our schedules fill up so fast. Especially like I can tell when people ask us to hang out, I'm like, nope, not this week, not next week. Okay, how's your October looking? And we're only in June, so.
Yeah. Shout out to all our friends who don't see us all wedding season. That's just part of being a wedding professional.
And we'll see you in the fall.
Yeah, I think last year we did a really good job of trying to hang out with friends and see family and do that kind of stuff. But it came at a cost, right? Like we were pretty exhausted last year. We also had more weddings. We had your brother that came, and that kind of makes things more complicated. So we don't have all of those factors this year, but instead we swapped it and we have the kids home for the summer. So This is definitely going to be an episode where I hope that we come up with some, or tell people some things, and then
I hope we know some.
we hold ourselves accountable as well to this, because I know that we feel so much better coming out of the season where we feel like we were still, active on social media. We were still, sending out newsletters. We were still, blogging or updating our website with galleries that we've shot. Like all these things that really kind of just drop off the face of the earth when the wedding season starts. I hope that we come out of it feeling like, we still did a decent job, and we still got our episodes out on the podcast, and, we got all the things that we promised ourselves that we would do, because that feels so much better than coming to the end of the year and going, we did it again. We didn't do the things.
What did we do again?
Nothing.
Nothing. Yeah, we did nothing again.
And then the reality is, and this is really where this comes from, is that, it always kind of happens where it's like January, right? And all of a sudden, the busyness of Christmas, the busyness of the holidays and all that subsides. And then it's like, okay, where are the clients now wanting to book weddings? But it's like, oh, well, 3 months ago or 5 months ago, 6 months ago, we weren't showing up on social media. We weren't being active in the community. We weren't networking. We weren't doing all those things. And that's a big part of this business. And the reality really sets in once we get to that like January, February, March, where there's nothing going on and you're just hearing crickets because nobody is coming to you. No one's looking to book you. And you're wondering why. Well, this is hopefully a preventative measure to alleviate that pressure in those, slower months.
Yeah, I've actually been taking a look at our numbers of when we booked new business, and I could tell that between January and April, other than the wedding show in March, like those are our slowest months. And I've always thought to myself, why aren't people looking for the summer coming up or the next year? But now that you mention the whole like 3 month, what have you been doing? The fall is usually when we really are in gear editing and shooting weddings. And then come January, February, yeah, maybe we just haven't been as active on social media, or everyone spent all their money in December and
True.
and they don't want to like go and spend more now, even though it's probably a good time to start planning your wedding when you're in the off season. But it's always been those months. And then once like June right now is picking up a lot for us in our bookings. And that's when we're starting to slip up a little bit. So maybe, we did our due diligence in the last couple months, but now if we start to slip up, then, come end of summer in the fall, we might see those numbers drop again because we're not being as active.
Exactly. It's definitely a reflection. And so I think just it's also good for as an entrepreneur to know that, right? To understand that that's kind of how business works, and it sucks because it means that you kind of always have to be on top of things. But I think hopefully through today's episode, we'll be able to just outline some of the things that work for us and what seems to be the thing that gets us back to the routine if we fall off. Because I think that's just the reality of this season, this part of the business, is that there's going to be some fall off, but it's just having a good plan to make sure that at least you're doing something so that you're not just invisible for the whole wedding season, which is, 4, 5, 6 months here, right?
And what would you say is like a good number of something to do so you're not like off the radar? Or what is it, like one post, like what's the magic formula? I think everyone wants to know.
I mean, I don't think there is a magic formula. So let's not pretend that there is.
No, but like a good baseline.
Yeah, the idea is that I think you need to be as active as you possibly can within reason. So if, in the off season you can post every single day, maybe during this season you're posting 3 times a week. You're doing something that maybe you're spending more time in stories where it's not edited or curated or whatever. You're spending a little bit more time there because at least you're showing up and your face is being, put out there.
But the thing is, I was thinking about this today as I'm doing stories, because stories they're easy. I find that they're easier to do than a post. Like you said, it's not as curated. You could just like wham, bam, here's a story, post it, whatever it is. But those don't get shown to new clients. Like it won't get pushed. It's not new people. You're not going to get new followers from doing stories. And I thought about that today. I was like, I really need to get into the posting, because doing the stories, it's cool to like foster relationships with who you have. But as wedding photographers, it's like we kind of are one and done, so we need to be constantly looking for new people.
Yeah. I mean, so that's why I think a 3, like just going on our numbers, right? We were posting, say, once a day. That was pretty steady for us. And I think for the season, and the season being the wedding season, is that 3 times a week, I think makes more sense, is more reasonable, is more attainable for us, or for me mostly, because it's me who mostly does all the posting. And also I think the other part, this is the part that I really want to hold ourselves accountable to this year as well, is updating our website, because the gallery thing, that's come up and snuck up on us a couple of times, where it's like we didn't update galleries for 2 whole seasons least, or more, and we're wondering why we're not booking or getting these things. And then I look, and it's like, well, you look through a website, and then it's all these old galleries from 2 years ago, which is fine. I mean, the work still looks similar, but it's not it's not representative of what we're shooting today.
Yeah.
And so my own goal is to
we are going to do this
is to try and update galleries, ones that I think make sense to be up on our featured galleries. And then the other thing too is we put a lot of time into our website. So just looking backwards on how to make sure that everything kind of leads people to our website as well. So, whether we're creating stuff that's helpful to our clients, or, helpful for the planning purposes, or photography, help or tips and tricks, like trying to plan stuff that's going to be meaningful, not just viral, because I feel like, we know how to go viral. We can post a viral meme, we can post a viral moment, we can do all those things, and they get thousands, if not millions of views. which are really good, but those don't really convert into followers. That's what we found anyways. And like you said, trying to like find people, trying to get people to follow you, new clients, finding you, that kind of stuff, you have to be putting out good quality content. So that's why to me, a 3 post a week, maybe one is a funny meme, and then the other 2 are more educational or helpful or a tip, something like that will really just get people to want to engage with our content, I think is more valuable than just like a funny meme that's getting, it's getting viral, but nobody knows who I am because of this viral meme. You know what I mean? Nobody knows who we are because of that viral thing. It goes viral and it looks good on the numbers, but it doesn't actually convert into sales and or, future bookings and more followers. And that was, I think, what we found was really kind of sucky in that regard. We're like, cool, we're going viral, but we're not getting followers.
I know, we had like 4 million views, and I think we got 100 followers maybe from 4 million views. It's crazy to think. So for everyone out there, if you think like, oh, wow, I need to go viral and make like crazy good videos, not really in that sense of like trying to get views. It's really, you want to give value to clients so that they will follow you because they're like, wow, I learned something, or this was really cool. Like this is a new way to do, I don't know, use your Flash or whatever it is, right? And that's what's really going to attract people to come interact with your stuff. But other than social media as well, since we're trying to stay on like being focused, we use Later as the tool that we use to post. So that saves us some time, and we can then, use some time. You can plan those 3 posts a week, like during one day, right? You don't have to sit there and like every 2 days go on there and think of what to write. Always batch creating content and copy and all of that stuff is always one way to save a bit of time. And you don't have to use Later. I think it's one of the most expensive ones, but we just really wanted it to hit like TikTok and Instagram and all these other, because we have like 3 accounts on each almost. So we really need a tool that can do it all.
And I like the idea that the batching. So just for instance, yesterday I batched, 2 or 3 weeks worth of content. I planned it all out, got all the content, all the covers, all that kind of stuff. I did all of those things, and it sucks because I don't really like, spending a whole day basically doing that, but it saves me a lot of that. It's like almost 9 o'clock at night and I haven't posted today kind of feeling.
That's the worst feeling, right? Like as much as it's like a small thing and you could be like, oh, well, I'll post it tomorrow. And then you're at 9 p.m. the next day. And then you're like, wow, it happened again.
It just keeps happening. Yeah. So I find that, that is really helpful. And honestly too, I feel like maybe it's just a symptom of my ADHD. I get bored of doing the same thing over and over and over again. So that's kind of why I think I've fallen off a little bit, because it's like, it's a bit boring.
Yeah, you have to weigh it against like the anxiety of like, I need to post today because it's been a while or whatever it is. And it's just that hump you have to get over. Mm-hmm. So you have to weigh it right against that. Like, sure, it's boring scheduling 20 posts, but then you don't have to do it for a full month or whatever it is. Right. And that's a good feeling.
Exactly. So I find that batching your content is a really, using a scheduler is a really good tool to have. And then also coming up with an idea on how you're going to continue to market like the weddings that you do have coming in. Because that's another thing to keep in mind, is that we're pre-scheduling all this content, but it's not taking into account any new content that we're going to bring forward as well, right? That we're going to be capturing over the next month. And so there's going to be like extra posts on top of that from like the new content that we're capturing. And, I think we've always been good at that. Like that's something that I've never dropped. Like I feel like I've been pretty consistent with sharing some stories, after the wedding and tagging vendors and doing all that. So I don't think I've ever really lost that. What happens is sometimes I just don't post as many photos because there's too many weddings. Sometimes if there's like a couple weddings in one weekend, then it gets a lot. But I feel like that's really the one thing that has been really consistent, I would say, since, I don't know, 2018, like if not, like even before that, where I just very consistently will post sneak peeks through my stories. I'll post, maybe like a reel or something like that. Like you're very good at doing a reel after a wedding that you've shot. Yeah. So I feel like we do a really good job there, but that's probably something that other people don't do, right? They're not posting sneaks and they're not, making a reel out of that fresh content. And that is probably the key, I would say, to growing and getting in front of new potential clients, is sharing your sneaks online and getting your clients to share them. I feel like that's like a little gold nugget that I hope you walk away with, that even if you do nothing else, like you don't pre-plan, you don't do anything, you should absolutely be sharing some sneak peeks on your stories or on your feed if you think that that's another way to do it.
Or through your blog.
But do that, because that is a really good way to gain some new followers and to gain some new eyes on your work. Because now these people that say there's 100 people at the wedding that we just shot, all those 100 people, maybe not all of them because they might not all have social media, but let's say 50% of the people have social media and they follow the couple and they're looking for these photos, right? Because, for instance, we took a bunch of photos of guests at that one. What else was there? The couple, is sharing the photos and things like that. So they get to see now like how we worked, what we were like to work with, how we interacted with people. And then on top of that, they get to see the final product, and it just kind of makes sense to them. Like, why wouldn't they hire us, right? Like some of their closest friends hired us. We were great to work with. We didn't get in anybody's way or whatever. And then they got a photo out of it. And then also they got the photos back really quickly. And like, there's just so many, it's just like a little golden nugget that I hope everybody is doing. I don't think do you think other people are doing it? I don't know.
It's definitely something that people should be doing. But do most people in the industry? I think people at our level, probably got to that level because they do something similar. Maybe the newer people don't, but all that to say is you should plan some time after a wedding to like get that done, right? To edit some stuff, but also to then share it in a way that is going to get seen by other people, either through stories, social media, blog, or just tagging other vendors that were there, especially if there's a planner or a venue and they share. They usually have like the majority of followers. Like a cake person may not have as much as like the venue would or whatever. And especially you want to get in front of people that are following the venue or planner or those people, because they're usually the ones that may be contacted before you, and then they usually get photographers after that.
Yeah. And funny enough, so the wedding we shot would have been 2 weeks ago. Yeah. We've already had a referral from that venue because we shared all of those sneaks and we interacted well with them. And we've already had one referral and a meeting with a potential client.
And that was a new venue.
And that was a new venue.
Yeah, within 2 weeks.
So that's kind of just a little proof to the pudding here that it definitely works. Because I straight up asked them, I was like, wow, I just shot there. How did you hear about us? He's like, oh, the venue told me about you. So.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Networking is another thing. A lot of it, pretty much everything we're going to talk about is like, you should probably schedule in advance. I think we've actually talked about something similar in a previous podcast about not losing that kind of momentum when you get into there, but it's just having those goals and keeping yourself accountable in the sense of, if you say you're going to meet with like one new person a month to do some networking, like get that in there as quickly as possible. With us, we actually just have like, corporate meetings as you would almost have at like a job. Over like Monday morning, we get our coffees and then we sit down and we review the week. We review our past week, what needs to move over, what happened well. I think one of the things that we should probably start tracking, well, probably me with my editing, is how long it takes me to complete certain projects. Because how are you supposed to plan for it in the future if you think it's going to take you 4 hours and it takes you 8? That's going to mess up your whole schedule and it's going to move things around. And in the end, it's just going to make you feel like a disappointment.
Yeah, but is it because it takes 4 hours, or is it because you watch a show and edit at the same time?
Don't talk to me about my shows, okay? My shows are there to keep me sane.
I sit beside you and I see how distracted you are. I think if you were to focus, back to the focus, you would probably you'd probably be able to get through things a little bit faster, because because I think like that's the hardest part is that
It's
it
boring,
sucks.
though.
Yeah.
It's like culling a wedding for you.
Yeah, I know.
It's just a lot because there's just a lot of like processing time with video using like 4K clips, and it's just like long stuff. And then usually I have like 3 tripods plus 2 cameras. So it's just a lot of footage to go through. Then color correcting, there's a whole thing. I'll make a video about it at some point.
I'm going to hold you to that.
But what are some other tools that we use to stay focused? Well, we use HoneyBook for our workflow system, which keeps up on top of like our communication. That's another thing too, letting emails build up or, client stuff. You're like, oh, I'll get back to it. And that can make a huge impact on the service that they are getting and your own mental fortitude of like, I have to get back. Like even now, I have to edit some stuff for some clients. And like every day that I don't do it, I think at the end of the day, well, that's another day that like I didn't do it. I got to I should do it tomorrow. Let's look at my schedule. I was like, oh, I got a bunch of other stuff planned. So it's kind of that domino effect.
I know, but that's why we've been starting to schedule it and we're having more conversations. I think that's really what it comes down to is scheduling some time, but also scheduling in some like downtime as well. Like that's something that, we have, things that we're doing for fun with the kids or things that we're doing for fun with family and friends and stuff like that. But also just like straight up days where we don't have anything else to do. I think that's another thing as a professional, you need to look at making sure you actually have time off, because even though we had some time off in the winter, did you actually take a day off? Did you actually just chill every day?
I mean,
probably
no.
not. No.
I am your husband. So do I get days off?
What are you trying to say? Are we having a therapy session here or what?
Well, you can talk to your brother, your dad, your mom, anyone that knows you, really.
You keep yourself busy. I do not. No. You keep yourself busy. I don't have to do anything. You just do it.
Oh, but you like to remind me. You don't have to do it, but you like doing it.
All right. Therapy session in session.
It's true. But if anyone is like me, I feel like I could plan a day off. And then during my day off, I'm like, cool, I have a day off. I could catch up on my work. It's probably not a good way to look at it. But
I think that's the hardest part is like, say we take a day off, but we go do something fun or whatever. Like, for instance, there's a water park close to us. So we're planning on taking our kids there. We got season passes. That's going to be exhausting. Like it just, it's almost an hour drive there, an hour drive back. 3 kids, chasing them around, sunscreening them, being in the sun all day. Just it already sounds exhausting. Just that alone.
Just hearing about it.
Just hearing about it. And, we know it's good. We know it's fun. It's good for the soul and all that kind of stuff. It's good for the kids because they'll be tired, but we're also going to be tired. So as much as it's a day off from like working, it's like a brain reboot. Let's just call it that. It's not maybe a day off. Maybe it's just like a brain reboot. Let's just call them that. A reboot day.
Reboot. Yeah, true.
Where we turn the computer completely off, so it can just not be on.
I do that on the daily. Oh, you meant the actual computer.
Yeah.
Oh, I meant my brain.
No, I know. I was like, wait, no, you don't.
Another thing that you could do to stay focused is having a mentor or the accountability, right? Again, we're 2 people, so we can feed off each other. But if you're in it by yourself, having somebody that you can talk to about your goals or, I feel like if you verbalize certain things out loud, it kind of makes like you'll get embarrassed if you don't do them. Like I do that pretty often in my stories. I'll be like, I'm about to do this. And then later on, I'm like, man, I'm so tired. I don't want to do that. And I'm like, ugh, but I told the public people that I have to do this thing. So it like pushes me to go and do that. So if you have that like other person that can be your cheerleader, even tell you what direction you should go on, right? Because that could be something that's very hard to decide as well.
Yeah, and I've always invested in like having a mentor or business coach or somebody like that where honestly really all they do is give you clarity. That's all it is. You talk about some of the things that are going on and then as you're saying it, like you said, out loud, all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, I should just do it like this. Like it's already there. You already know the information, but by talking to somebody who's either ahead of you or who's done something like this before or who's in the same boat, who understands your business, it really does make a whole world of difference when you have somebody that you can just bounce everything off of. And really, you have to understand that usually, like when you're working somewhere, you have a boss or you have, experts who are helping lead the direction of the company and all these things. And then it just kind of gets passed down to you to do whatever part of that piece of the pie. You are the whole pie when it comes to this. There is
crust, you're the filling, you're the toppings.
You're everything. So you have to look at investing in ways to make your life easier, right? Whether that's using tools like we talked about, we use our calendar a lot. Our calendar is like our Bible. If it's not in the calendar, how messy does it get in our life when it's not in the calendar?
Especially when friends are like, hey, by the way, you said you were going to hang out with me on Saturday, and you're like, it's full with other stuff. It was not in the calendar to begin with.
And that happens more times than we'd like to say.
Twice in a month.
If it's not in the calendar, it just doesn't happen. Yeah. And that's why I think it's so crucial for us to have these weekly discussions. So maybe it's not, maybe it's not your spouse. Maybe your spouse isn't the right person. Maybe it's another person that that you look up to, or maybe you hire somebody that's going to help you get direction, maybe on a monthly basis or something like that, because I feel like that is really helpful for you to have somebody that you can bounce ideas off and really get clarity on the things that sometimes just are like blocking you from moving forward. Sometimes that I feel like I resonate with that so much, because I do get blocked, like I get in my own head and I think of a million ways that this isn't going to work, or it's going to work wrong, or whatever it is. And then I just don't do it.
Yeah. Okay? And meanwhile, I come by and I'm like, just do it. Just do it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just fucking go.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to do it wrong. And then you're going to want to fix it. And then I do it.
So this segues really well into the next thing I was going to talk about, is putting systems in place that work for you. So like, for example, we meet on Mondays to talk about our week. That's a system. I start things and then to pass it off to you. That's a system. We schedule our social post. That's a system. So you have to put in place certain systems or processes that are just going to make sense to you. And the off season is a really good time to refine those and to work on those, because you don't have a lot of time to, like you said, step back from your business and take a look at it. I think that's what mentors and coaches do really well, is they ask you questions about, it's kind of like therapy, where you just go in and you're like solving your own problems by talking out loud, because a lot of the times you don't have time to think at that level. But if somebody's there with you, then it's easier to like answer the questions and think about that, because most of the time you're like, well, today I've got to work on this. It's a lot of like to do. And again, our system is, I'm a to-do guy and you're a thinker. So we obviously we have some synergy there as well.
Yeah. And I feel like you said it exactly right, in the sense of you don't have time to think about the big picture that often. Even me, who loves thinking big picture, like I would prefer to think big picture over anything else. Hands down. I love it. Like, get me in the big picture scene. That is my jam.
That's why you're the boss and I'm the employee.
He said it. Okay. But I love getting, to think about that, but I don't feel like I get to do it as much as I'd really like to. And that is why having somebody else to, prompt those for me is really important, because then it gets me to sit back and go, does this really matter? Like, is this really going to make a difference?
I know, right?
And then I also think about, just like we talked about all the systems that we have, but we also have HoneyBook. And I'm sure for most people, that's probably taking up a lot of their time. But we just have had these workflows in place for so long that it feels like it's not even a thing for us anymore.
It's like a cheat code in a video game.
Yeah. Like you think it would be something that takes up so much of our time, but really, I would say wedding clients, once they're booked, they really don't take up a lot of our time, really.
But we did spend a lot of time in initial process to get it going, right? To like refine it. Like, we're still going through it almost on a yearly basis at the very least, to be, the biggest change we made recently was to be more inclusive.
Yeah.
No more bridegroom, bridal party. It's more like wedding party.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that that's important to do, right? As we change and grow and evolve as a society, I think those are the things that you have to be doing as a business owner. You
True.
don't want to be on the other side of it where you're not being respectful to people. And, we do have some clients that are, same sex and things like that. So we have to be conscious of those things. And so those are the types of changes that we make because it's so important for that. But the system in place really allows for us to have time to do all of these other things, right? So if we didn't have that in place, I would be having to email clients back and forth because they'd be wondering like, where do I book a timeline meeting? Or how do I do this? Or when do I book my engagement session? And what do I wear to my engagement session? Like literally we have all of these questions that people ask us. We've put it into a workflow system, and that has saved us enormously to the point where we don't even think about it anymore. Right. Like I actually had a client reach out to me recently. She's like, okay, I have all these things. And like, she asked me questions. And then I thought like, did I not activate the workflow? Because it feels so weird to have somebody asking me questions. And then I'm like, she got all the emails. So either she's not reading them or she's just like, feels like there's not enough, even though there's quite a few emails in there. But anyways, again, it kind of prompts me to think, is there enough? Are we doing the wording? Does it make sense? Or is she just like a one-off, right? That doesn't make sense. But for like 99% of people, it works, right? So
yeah, that's another, it takes care of also our, our contract, our payments. It reminds people, all that kind of stuff, right? And if you didn't have that system, it'd be kind of annoying to chase people for payments or to have to answer all those questions back and forth. And then Calendly obviously is really good mixed with Honeybook. So Honeybook just sends them an automated email. Then they go to our live calendar and they can book things by themselves. So automating things. So essentially that's a big part of finding your systems and your processes and then automating it, right? You like create something new and then you just give it life and you're on your own. And then that lets you some freedom to be able to create something else, which will add more value to your clients, which then you can charge more, which then automate it. Let's go. Next thing. Boop, boop, boop.
And then you'll book more people, right? And that's the idea, is that we want to book people so we can pay our bills.
And if it's not just automations, maybe it's like hiring somebody if you're at that level where you need the extra help, right? Like I feel like we could probably hire somebody to do some of the things, but we like to do it all ourselves.
Because we pay for all the systems. So to me, it's
That's
like
true.
hiring somebody to input it in the system, like when I'd probably have to go in and approve it and fix it. Like we've gone through that route before, let's be honest.
Paying a system $50 a month is much cheaper than paying somebody
$500
$50 an hour.
Yeah, we've gone down that route, so we know what that's like. It's harder than it looks. It takes a lot of time. It takes months of getting somebody to really understand your business, and sometimes it just never worked out for us, and so we just decided to do a lot of it ourselves.
I think the best value that we've gotten is getting, like, not specifically mentoring, but like listening to podcasts of people or how they did some certain things. So we just found that, like, wow, we really liked this specific thing that they did. We kind of just assimilated that, and then now we use it. And then we kind of did that with like a bunch of people that we aspire to be, or they're all just like next level, right? And that's something that I think is the most valuable out of all of it. Was you can find these like tips and tricks that they do, and you're like, never would I have come up with that myself, and it didn't cost you anything. You like learned it in a free podcast or just by listening or watching something.
Yeah, I think that most educators, if they have a podcast or a YouTube or something, like they probably give away every single thing that they would teach through this, right? I think most of it, or maybe not all the meat and potatoes of it, but like most of the concepts, most of the ideas, most of the little tidbits are in there, right? They've just put it in a more structured place where it's like very like, this is this, and this next step to do this, and the next step is to do that, right? Versus you listening to like 50 podcasts, right? But that's what I feel like if you were to listen to somebody who's an educator, they probably give away free stuff like this. You probably get most of the content or the concepts from the free stuff.
That's what I'm saying is like, that's the most impactful stuff I think that we've learned is through just like listening and talking to people and networking. Staying focused in your business can be challenging, especially in the wedding industry once the season picks up and you're just kind of all over the place. But putting together, a good schedule, making sure that you stay accountable. So have somebody that you can bounce ideas off of, or at least somebody, it could even be like in your stories, you're telling your followers, hey, I'm going to get this done. And then let that guilt build up, that embarrassment that you're not going to get it done. Let that fuel you to get it done. Putting in place the processes, making sure that you plan ahead and using these tools, having a mentor or coach.
Ideally, what you want to do to make sure that you're successful through this is to set some goals. So I think that's probably the best way that I find works well for me. Right now, my goals are, and I'm going to say them out loud, is I'm sending a newsletter once a week. I'm trying to post to social media at least 3 to 5 times a week on 2 accounts. And I'm also, that's not including stuff that comes up from, that's
Weddings.
why it's 3 to 5, because the 5 could be wedding weeks where there'll be more content. And then the other thing is every Monday is us scheduling our time and looking at sort of the next following 2 to 3 weeks or more and figuring out, okay, when can we get all of the things that we want to get done on our checklist, and being very active on that. And then also updating galleries. So that's another one of my things is making sure that I'm keeping the website fresh and keeping it up to date. And because that to me, I think is so important. And I think through that, come, January, February, I'm hoping we'll see a difference, and we'll circle back to this and see how it worked. But I mean, I feel like those are some really attainable, easy things to hit. Especially if we're communicating, every week about things and checking in and keeping each other accountable that way. I feel like just having like a clear set of goals that you can review like every week or every month to see where you're at is going to really help you not feel like you're so far behind come January.
Yeah. And not just professional goals, like what I want to accomplish every week, but it's also setting that day of taking a break from work, setting that meeting to do some networking, and just blocking off some of the time that you'll need to finish some of the work that you see in the future, right? Like, oh, it takes me 4 hours to edit a wedding. So after every wedding, I pick a day, shortly after. That 4-hour block is going to be for that, so that at least when time comes, you're not blocking that time with other stuff. And then you're like, oh no, I didn't figure out how much time I actually needed. And maybe just timing yourself. How long does it take you to actually do stuff? And then you can really see.
Yeah, but having those check-ins is really going to make the difference, I think.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway.
All right.
Keep on keeping on.
Stay focused. See you next time. Bye.
Turning heads with their flash, wedding photographers capturing love in a flash, taking shots like paparazzi. They're a dynamic duo, posing couples like models on their love they bestow. Shooting weddings, they got the perfect frame. Look behind the lens while Bethany brings the flame, capturing every moment, they never miss a beat, freezing time, making memories that are oh so sweet.